Thank you for joining us. Let me click some buttons here. Hello. Hi, we're going to be making some really fun polymer clay jewelry projects today, and they are Halloween themed. So if you are live with us right now, Halloween is just a few days away. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I hope that you can still use these Halloween projects throughout the year. So I am Stephanie Menor, and I will be teaching you everything you need to know about very simple and basic polymer clay jewelry crafting. The pieces that we're making are earrings, and we're making a necklace. And let's switch to the top-down camera, and I'll give you a preview of what we're going to be working on today. So as you can see, we have some cute little ghosty earrings, some fun little dangle earrings with hearts, and little bats, and a rainbow necklace. Most of these projects use polymer clay. Well, all of them use polymer clay, but most of them use solid polymer clay, which we all know what that looks like. It looks like this. But some of them use a new kind of polymer clay that already has the patterns in it. It looks something like this. Now, this is sold only at Michael's right now, and it is such a new revolutionary way of getting different colors and patterns into your clay for a beginner. So let me clear this, and then I'm going to go through the supply list that you'll need to craft along. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to bring in this ceramic tile. I always work with with polymer clay on a ceramic tile, because when you do it that way, you can put the whole tile into your oven. So polymer clay is an oven baked clay. It is not an air dry clay. You do have to bake it in your oven, and we're going to talk about different oven types, how long, what temperature, all of that good stuff. But you do have to put it into your oven. So the simplest way to do that is by crafting on a ceramic tile that can just go directly in the oven. You want to make sure your ceramic tile is completely smooth. If you don't have a ceramic tile, no problem. A little baking sheet with a piece of parchment paper on top of it, that's what you need. Okay, so I showed you the clay. Let's talk about some tools. We're going to be using tools from this item at Michael's. This is sort of like your basic polymer clay toolkit. And so we have a roller, a bunch of different cutters, and a blade. We will also be using a selection of different clay cutters. These are like cookie cutters, but specifically for jewelry. And we're going to be using an assortment of different ones of these. Couple other random things. We're going to be using some acrylic paint. You'll need a paintbrush. We'll be using this little hand drill to drill some holes in what we're making. And we'll be using a selection of findings. Findings, if you're not familiar with that term, these are just the metal components that bring your jewelry together, that connect things together. So let's get started. So as I said, this is a new kind of polymer clay where the pattern is already baked into the clay. So I'm opening this up. I cut half of this slab off to preview some things for you. But this is what it looks like, just double the size. And so you can see that those colors go all the way through the clay. It's not just like a surface treatment that's on the clay. And so I'm putting that right directly down onto my ceramic tile. The first thing I'll want to do is sort of make that a little bit shorter. Let me grab another tool here. So these tools, these are thickness guides. So I want to reduce the thickness of this. When you buy the slab in stores, it's about a 5 millimeter thickness. But these thickness guides, these are acrylic plates that go beside what you're working on, and they help to control the thickness of your clay so that when you roll it out, you can roll it out to an even thickness. So these thickness guides come in, you get both of them in one package. One is a 4.5 mm and one is, oh, you can't even see that, is a 3 mm guide. So I'm going to be using the 3 mm guide. So I just place those on either side and then I use my acrylic roller to start rolling. The other thing that you can do is by using cornstarch. I just have some cornstarch here to the side. I can kind of just put that on top. This, like when you're making cookies, it acts like a flour so that this clay won't stick. So I'm putting a little bit of that on my roller and I'm just going to start rolling. And I want to be fairly gentle. I don't want to put all my pressure onto it at once. I want to kind of slowly bring this thickness down to the thickness that I want. So I'm using these 3 millimeter thickness guides. So I can kind of feel with my finger here if I'm getting close to 3 mm. If you also have a pasta machine, you can use that. You can put the clay through the pasta machine, and that makes it very simple to reduce this down. But we're going to be doing it the old-fashioned way here. All right. So let me, again, with my finger, I can feel I'm still a little bit above there. All right. So we are at 3 mm. So I can remove my thickness guides. And I'd like to show you what we are making. So this is the earring that I'm going to make out of this marbled slab. This earring has a piece of clay in the shape of a bat and a metal wire. I'm going to show you the back of it too, because we actually did glue with an adhesive called UV resin on the back of this to glue that on. Now you can make your own wire hoop out of wire, but that is a little bit more of an advanced skill. So we'll have to tackle that in more of an intermediate to advanced class on how to make this specific wrapped loop up at the top of there. Let me get out mine. This is kind of the start to the loop. Let's put that aside right now. Okay, so let's go batty. Let's make some bats. So these are all of the different cutters that we're going to be using in today's class. The cutters that you'll see at Michael's come in a variety. There's some basic shapes, some trendy shapes. This one is a leaf shape, but if you use your imagination, it's also a bat shape. So I'll show you how to turn this into more of a batty looking shape. So bringing in my cornstarch, whenever I use cutters, I do want to dip it into cornstarch because that will just make sure that it won't stick. So setting my cutter down, and I can see where the pattern is and look down through the cutter till I get to exactly where I want that pattern to be. So right there, and then press down. Press down evenly. You want to make contact with your table or your working surface. Okay, and then lift that up. And again, into the cornstarch. I'm going to make a second one right here. And lift that straight up. Okay, and now you would take some of your smaller cutters and use up all the rest of this, just like when you're making cookies. You want to get the greatest amount of cookies out of your dough. So you would fill up all of that with other shapes as well. And then once you've used all of your cutters, you can remove this excess. Just like that. It's easier to do it that way than just try to pick out the positive parts. It's easier to remove the negative space. And because I'm crafting on ceramic towel, I don't have to move these at all. It's the moving of pieces in polymer clay making that can get them a little wonky. That opens up the possibility of sticking your fingernail in there, or getting fingerprints or some hair in there. This is the simplest way where you cut, you remove the negative space, and then this whole tile can just go into my oven. but we're not done yet. We have some customization to do, as you can see here. Okay, let me get, I'm going to use this tool. This tool comes in the starter toolkit that I showed you. Each of the tools in there has two sides. This one has like a pointy side. This one has like a paddle side. So I'm going to use that to make these lines. So I want to start in the middle and kind of just roll it. And I'm not cutting all the way through. And then using this point in the middle as sort of like my anchor point right at the top, I'm going to go in and with a slightly curved line come out to the side. And again, I'm going to split this space between here and here to keep my details even. Make a curved line out to the side. Can you guys see? Let me bring in a little bit more. Okay, let's do that again on the other side, starting in the middle, curving out to the side. And one more time, trying to keep that even to what I did on the other side. So that's how we make these shapes here. And then to make this look more like a bat and less like a leaf, this is a really fun technique. You can use two cutters together. In this case, we're using these two cutters together to make shapes. So you may not have to go out and buy a bat-shaped clay cutter. If you have sort of basic shapes, you can use them together as building blocks. So I'm going to use the circle cutter to cut out, oops, I bumped you guys. Here we go. To cut out these bat wings. So I'm being very careful to come in here and place this and cut down. You can see how much clay I've taken off. Not a lot, but it's enough to make like a perfect bat wing shape. Let me take that out, put that down there because we're going to use that for something else, that little tiny bit. And then I just repeat. This is a great way to get the most value out of the cutters that you already have. And just trying to make each cut that I do similar to the last cut. So we do have a small group with us today. Hello, everyone. I want to remind you as I'm doing this that the chat function is available. If you have any questions, we have some experts on the line with us that can help answer your questions. And if I see your question come up live, I'd like to answer it on air if I see it. So go ahead and say hi to us in the chat. And we don't want to let any of your questions go unanswered. So please let us know if you have any questions. Okay, it's looking pretty good, huh? That looks like a bat. So again, my goal when I'm working with this is to move it as little as possible. So I don't need to touch this at all. I can take this whole thing and go straight into the oven with it. All right, and now let me scoot this over. And we're going to talk about baking. So when I'm ready to put this into the oven, you want to use a toaster oven or a regular oven. A convection oven will work, not the microwave. Anything but the microwave, pretty much. And it is a warm oven. It's only 250 degrees. So you want to preheat your oven. You want to make sure your oven is actually at 250 degrees because ovens can be finicky and have hot spots. So you want to make sure it's 250 degrees. Put it in there for 20 minutes and allow it to cool. And I've actually done that with this piece right here. This is exactly how it came out of the oven. And you can see the good, bad, and ugly of it. Sometimes when you're using these sort of free-form cuts, you need to perfect along the edges. These are the two that I made. So let me show you how to do that. So like I said, oven, 250, 20 minutes. When you are baking polymer clay, it's always better to err on the side of cooking it longer. Don't worry about burning it. It's only 250 degrees. It's going to take a lot of extra time to burn that. But you want to cook it thoroughly, because polymer clay that is not cooked thoroughly will be brittle. Here's another piece that I cooked in another class. This is cooked polymer clay. It is very, very bendy, okay? This should not be brittle. It should not be able to be broken. Here's another earring that we made in a previous class. You can see how bendy it is. So if your polymer clay turns out brittle, it's because it's not been baked long enough, not because it's been baked too long. It hasn't been baked long enough. All right, so here are my pieces, and let me show you how to perfect it. So along the edges, along the bottom here, you can see there's little imperfections. You can go in with a nail file and just sort of file those away if you have any rough spots. You can use sandpaper to do this step. And if you're fancy and you might have like a little Dremel drill, that will work well too. So I can go all around here in these kind of pointy parts. I can just make sure that they are smoothed out. Okay. And let me scoot that away. I saw a question about the wire. So this is black coated wire, and somebody will have to answer from Blue Moon in the chat. But this looks to me about maybe like a 22 gauge wire. But you can confirm that in the chat, please. Thank you, guys. Okay, so this is the ear wire. Like I said, this is used as a wrap loop. It's a little advanced, but if you have an earring hoop already or another finding, these same techniques will work. All right, so basically this is what we're trying to do. Let's put that on there. And so we want to connect that with a glue or an adhesive of some kind. And I'm going to show you two of them. The first one is just a glue. This is the glue that I recommend whenever you're doing a metal to polymer clay type of a connection. And this Loctite super glue works really well. And so you would just put a few drops and let that dry. The second adhesive that I would recommend is UV resin. So UV resin is a wonderful adhesive that cures in UV light. It doesn't cure in the air. You can leave it out in your crafting room forever and it will never dry until it's exposed to UV light, like the UV light that comes from the sun or UV light that comes from a little lamp. So we're going to use this Loctite today. And we're going to come back to UV resin. And the thing that I like about this Loctite is that it grabs almost immediately. And that is how you would add a wire earring finding like this to the back of your bat. All right, let's set that aside so that can dry. And let's move on to the next project, which is going to be these little ghosties. Super cute. And that is where I'm going to be reusing these little balls that I pulled off of the bat wing. I just need to make sure I use two that are the same size. So for this, we're using solid colors of clay. So here is the item as it's sold in stores. You get a white slab, a gray slab, and a black slab in there. So let me open this up. I actually really like this new trend in like Halloween decor where it's pink. like a light pink ghost, super cute. We're gonna, in fact, you know what? Let's do light pink. That way you can actually see it a little bit better on this white background. So when you get the clay, it is sort of encased in plastic. You should take this off, being gentle. You don't want to break your clay up. Okay, make sure my area is clean here. And here's my slab. All right, same steps that I did before, which is using the thickness guides to roll this out. And I am going to put more cornstarch on the top of it, just to make sure that it's not going to stick. The cornstarch, gets put in the oven, no problem. And you just want to wash that off before your final assembly. All right, and let's get to rolling here. And this technique that I'm going to show you for the ghost is another one of those, let's make use of the cutter shapes that you already have. So no need to go out and buy a ghost shaped cutter. We are going to show you how to use some of your basic shapes together to create that ghost shape. All right, keep going here. Are any of you guys crafting along with us? Has anyone been brave enough? When you sign up for these classes, there is a supply list that's included. So that gives you everything that you would need to make all of these projects. If you are interested. I'm going to bring you guys up just a little bit here. Great question from Dottie. Should you wrap unused clay up? Yes. So if I have just solid clay, I'll wrap it up in some plastic wrap like this. If I have a slab of the pattern clay, I like to save the box that it comes in. Let me give you an example here. So it comes in this little like acetate little blister. Don't throw that away. Keep that because it's just the perfect thing to keep the air out of your clay. So this is a piece of patterned clay that I used earlier, and I just put the leftovers in here. And this makes it super easy to store. Plus it's clear so you can see what you have. Great question. Thank you. All right, and you can take this down as thin as you want. These thickness guides, as I said, are 3 millimeters. But if you are feeling feisty and you want to take that down even further, kind of like on your own, you can. I would say you don't want to go anything less than about 2 millimeters because then it just gets really, really lightweight. Okay, so here is our second piece or second earring that we're starting. We're making this little ghosty. And to do that, we're going to use this arch shape cutter. So again, into the cornstarch. So I get on that cutting edge. And pressing that down. And lifting straight up. Back into the cornstarch. And lifting that up. And then, of course, you would use the rest of your clay. I'm just going to actually cut this off with my blade and pull this away because I like to, like I showed you that little storage trick, I like to put that back in here. And now, oops, got to put it this way. And now that is ready for my next craft day. All right, I'm going to pull all of the rest of this off. Of course, you would fill up this with different cuts. And sometimes the clay comes off easily. Sometimes it takes a minute. That's when you can go in with some of your other tools that come in the toolkit like this. Can help you remove all of the negative parts here. And I'm not really worried about any excess clay that's off here to the side. What I'm worried about is my little ghost shape and just making sure I can take this tool around it, just making sure there's no excess clay still sticking to the piece itself. So I'm just moving those out of the way. It'll make it easier later after you bake to have those pieces already kind of cleaned up. All right, ghost eye time. So here are my little excess pieces from my bat wings. And you just make a little ball. Maybe this is a better match for size. And you can press down whenever you get those in the right spot that you want them. Whoa. And if you don't want to use your finger, here is where a tool comes in very handy. A question from Karen in the chat. Could you use seed beads for eyes? You absolutely could. That's a great suggestion. Any glass material will work great. Any metal material will work great. Remember, you're only putting this in an oven that is 250 degrees. So glass and metal, it doesn't melt at 250 degrees. So you don't need to worry about that. I'm going to show you a third possibility, which is something like this, little rhinestones. You can use rhinestones for eyes. These rhinestones are, I believe they are acrylic rhinestones, but that is fine. That can go into your 250 degree oven. So here I'm just kind of sinking them down in there a little bit, and don't flip it like I did. There we go. Now to get this sort of ruffled edge at the bottom, here's where we use another tool in a creative way. So this tool has sort of a ball end and this, what do you call that end? I don't know. What do you call that? I'm at a loss for words, but it has the right shape we need for a ghost bottom. And so we just use that to cut. Scalloped? Okay, yeah, it's close to scalloped, but it's like pointy. There you go. So cute. And you can really perfect this. I mean, I'm going very fast because I want to make sure you get through all of these projects, but you can perfect this so it's perfectly even and is the exact right shape that you want. And then, you guessed it, this whole thing goes into the oven. So let me move this off to the side. We'll bring in our example. So we have, now we're really, I think you guys get the gist of rolling, of cutting. And now we're going to spend some time talking about final assembly of your polymer clay. So these are our example earrings, and these are all of our pieces that have been baked. So as I said before, properly baked polymer clay is very flexible, like this. You can see how flexible that is. On this particular piece, it has the splatter effect. This was made by splattering actual cheapy acrylic paint. With a paintbrush, you splatter it right on. That can be done before you bake or after you bake, because this acrylic paint can go into a 250-degree oven and be fine. So that can be done either way. I just wanted to point out how we got that surface texture on there. All right, sorry, I have more pieces over here that I want to show you. These just came out of the oven. So here's a little heart that came out of the oven. And again, you can see kind of at the bottom, there's a little like a foot to it or a ruffled edge. And you can just perfect that by using a little nail file, sandpaper, or a Dremel drill. So you can perfect these just perfect. Here's a moon that we made. Just knock that excess off. If you have a lot of excess clay, you could go in with a wire cutting tool, something like that, and snip that off. But as long as when you're cutting, you are pushing down and making complete contact with the cutter to your work surface, you shouldn't really have a problem. Okay. All right, so you'll see in our example earrings that we need some holes here to be able to connect to these things in the way that we want. So here we need one hole in the ghost, one hole in the topper, one hole in the ghost, two holes in this moon. And this one, we need a lot of holes. These two need one hole, these need two. All right, so let me show you how to do that. You can make holes in the clay before you bake it. Let me slide this back over and I'll show you that. Our little ghosty, I can make a hole in the top here with a tool and then put it into the oven. Not a problem doing that. However, I've had some issues personally doing that, so I prefer to make the holes after you bake it. You can be a little more accurate. The holes look a little more clean and consistent. So let me show you this heart. This is a hand drill. This is also sold at Michael's. If you had a Dremel drill, something that's electrified, good on you, use that. But this hand drill, it really only takes a few seconds to drill through here. So you want to place the drill where you want your hole to be. The bottom of the drill is like kind of like cupped into my hand. I place that to where I want to go and start twisting. And already I'm pierced through the back of it. So it really only takes a few seconds. And then I'm going to reverse to get that out. And there you go. I sometimes it has a little bit of extra shavings in there you got to clean out. But there's where your hole is. And on this piece, we need one down here as well. So let's drop that in. See, it's already come through. And then, you know, just make sure that there's no extra shavings caught in there. So that's how you create holes in your jewelry components so that you can do a final assembly. Now, I have gotten all of these little shavings. Every tiny little piece of polymer clay can be used. And so once again, let me bring in my ghosty here. This is our little example. Even these shavings can be used. I can use those on top of, let me move his eyes. I can use those on top of other non-baked polymer clay to create like a marble or confetti look. And just pressing those into fresh clay. FYI, we don't like to waste a little bit of it. We want to use all of the clay that we buy. Okay, so back to final assembly. Let's assemble this ghost guy. So he goes with a little earring topper like that. And what connects those is a jump ring. So this jump ring, this one's already open. This is a closed jump ring. Let me show you. This one's silver. This one is black. Using black findings with black elements just kind of elevates things. Michaels carries all different findings, platings, but the black looks particularly good with Halloween. All right, so I'm going to show you with a non-open jump ring. So these jump rings, they have a break. I don't know if you can see the break that's in the top of there, but you want to situate your jewelry pliers on either side of that break, or just with a bigger jump ring like this, I can use my fingers and just open it. So I'm bringing one toward me and one away from me. And then I slide that through the hole at the top. Okay, so now he's dangling on there. Through the same jump ring, I put in my earring topper. I call this an earring topper because, well, it's the top of the earring, but this is the part that is going to go through your ear. So now both pieces are on one jump ring. And now in the opposite motion, here's where I might need to bring in another tool. In the opposite motion that I did, I bring them back to center. And that's how you connect two pieces together. Okay. So now you may be saying to me, but wait, this is not an earring yet. How do I wear it? Well, here's where you have some options and where we use findings to do that. So you have a couple of earrings options, and I'm going to show you each of them. So if you wanted this to be a stud earring, you need to add one of these flat pads to the back, like that. This is, I think, an 8 mm size. This is a 4 mm size. Oops, fell right off of there. So you go. And the way that you add that is with more Loctite. This is my go-to glue for polymer clay. And so let's do that right now. Just a tiny little bit. And it grabs almost immediately. Fair caution to you all, because it works really fast. Okay, so let's let that dry the rest of the way. So that's one way of adding a finding to turn this beautiful little ghostie into an earring. The second way is if you want to use an earring finding like this. It's more of a dangle type. And that is very simple. You just need to drill another hole here. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm trying to center it, trying to keep it straight, going through, and bringing it back out. And now we need to connect this to this using another jump ring. Same process we just did. We open up the jump ring, feed it through our clay, and then we put the top on. An ear wire is what that is called. If you are looking on michaels.com, that's called an ear wire. And so now this is going to hang a little bit lower from the ear. It's going to give you a little more movement than something like this, which the movement just comes from that. So it's really personal preference which one you like. But I wanted to show you both ways. Okay, so there's our little ghosties. All right, next earring, we have this triple stack of hearts, which is a very simple design, but super effective. You can make these hearts for any holiday, depending on the colors that you choose. So here are our 3 pieces. And you can see we've already drilled the holes in there. So top one has a hole here, 2, and this one has 1. And let's connect. And I'm going to use black jump rings for this one because I have them over here and I have these jump rings already open. So by open, what I mean is they've already been twisted. So we can move right to this step. Connecting that, and before we close it, we connect to the next one up. So when I'm connecting these, I'm keeping in mind which is the front and which is the backs. So I'm making sure that all the fronts are facing in the right way. And hello, where are we here? Gotta feed it through there. There we go. And close that up. So now we have 2 connected. And let's connect the last one. All right, and now we have another earring. And again, we need to decide, do we want to use the earring pad or do we want to add an ear wire? And that, like I said, personal preference. I'm going to go ahead and do the earring pads. We do both of these together. Here I have 2 earring pads. When you buy those pads, sometimes they come with the earring backs and sometimes they don't. But like those little earring backs we all know. There we go. All right, lock tight. And so hopefully you're learning a little something from this class. These are great projects if you give your jewelry away as gifts, or if you sell jewelry like in a market or little craft fair. These are great ways to make consistent pieces that look the same. And if you're making things for gifts or making a whole lot of them together, you can create kind of an assembly line where you do all of your cutting, do all of your baking, do all of your cleaning up, and then do all of your connections, and then finally adding the ear findings. So that is still a little bit wet, but you can see what that looks like. Okay, one more earring to go, and that is this little arch. So this arch was made with this cutter, and then the moon was made with this cutter. I don't think I need to show you that part again. I think you are good to go on that part, but let's go ahead and assemble these. So I need my 2 pieces. This one is using a black ear wire at the top and 2 jump rings. All right, let's get to assembling. So we are wrapping it up here. I'm just going to assemble this last pair of earrings. But please, in the chat, if you have any unanswered questions, we're happy to answer them for you. I hope that we've given you some inspiration so you can feel more confident doing some polymer clay jewelry. Now, there are a million different polymer clay artists out there that are making wonderful and creative things. These projects are definitely for a beginner. So I was hoping to take away a little bit of the fear to start a new project like this. But you can see you can, with just the skills that we've learned, the skills of cutting, baking, decorating, connecting, really the sky's the limit to your own creativity. All right, and there's our final pair of earrings. Let's bring all these guys in here. Here we have our bats. And I don't want to turn these over yet. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Oh, sorry, question in the chat from Carol. If you're going to splatter the clay before, and that's all that it's showing me, but I think what you're asking is, can you bake the paint? Yes, you can bake paint. So a lot of different ways to get acrylic paint onto a piece. One of them is splattering. That's where you take your brush, you put some paint on it, and you do this little motion, and that splatters the paint on there. You can do that before or after baking. You can also use acrylic markers. Those work better after baking because you're kind of drawing. I hope that was your question because it was only showing me a little bit of what you wrote.
I can read off the full question for you. Hold on one second.
Thank you.
If you're going to splatter, sorry, there's more messages coming in, then I lose it. Okay. If you're going to splatter the clay before baking, do you need to clean off the cornstarch first?
That is a very good question. I would lightly brush it off first. So you can make sure that paint is just like making a good contact with the clay. Good question. Any other questions from you guys? I thought I saw something about UV resin, which UV resin, as I said, this is a great adhesive, but it's also great for creating a shiny top coat. So you'll see with all of our pieces here, they come out of the oven very matte. And I like that matte look. I think it looks very modern. But if you want a shiny look, you can use a product like this, UV resin. And let me show you just before we sign off here what that looks like. So here is a heart that I already baked. And I can just go straight from the bottle with a little dot of resin, and I could go in with like a wood stick, toothpick, something like that, and work that to the edges of the heart. And I am kind of doming it up a little bit. That also is going to make any of your pattern work really beautiful. And then it will stay liquid like that until I put some UV light on it. So this is a UV light. If I hit the button, you can see it turns on. It's like what they use at the nail salon. You might be a little bit more familiar with that. But this is in a whole section at Michael's called UV Resin Craft. And a lot of the products in that section work so well with polymer clay. The UV resin itself does. Some of the tools work really well. In fact, this drill that I was using, this drill, this you could find in the UV resin section at Michael's. All of it's in the jewelry crafting department. All right, so this is going to take about maybe 1 to 2 to 3 minutes, even since this is a dark color, to cure. And then it's just a hard, clear, glass-like finish. All right, so glad I could sneak that in at the very end. That's a little treat for you that stayed until the end. So thank you so much, guys. We do classes several times a month. The next class is coming up just next week. We have a class on November 2nd, a class on November 6th. So please come join us where we talk all things jewelry making, polymer clay, and UV resin. So please join us again. Thanks so much, guys.